in all of anime, there's no director that I appreciate more than Makoto Shinkai. And I know it's a very personal sort of take. A lot of people don't like him, but for me, I see evolution in this director. I see his work has really improved during his career, and he's human. There are drawbacks. The Place Promised in Our Early Days I don't think is a very strong film, but he's also given us stuff like 5 centimeters per second, Your Name, and The Garden of Words. And even something as short like Daraka no Manazashi, which is a great like 7 minute short that's on YouTube that I highly recommend you check out because it's beautiful. This man just makes incredibly beautiful anime, and he and his studio, I guess I should say, just continue to pump out these blockbuster sort of wonderful looking movies that are growing, I think, more and more appealing to people. Like, I think Your Name is probably his most widespread appealing movie. Clearly, it's evidenced by it's made the most money in anime history. I still prefer The Garden of Words slightly, but I do recognize Your Name as a wonderful film, and I am super excited for his 2019 film Weathering with You, which comes out next month in July. And I can't wait for it to have an English release here because I will definitely go see it, hopefully at a theater near me. But he's just, I've seen pretty much everything he's done, and while I do admit that some films aren't as memorable, and I think A Place Promised in Our Early Days is kind of flat out bad, I still see that this guy's sort of just gotten better, and I think he sort of learns from some of the mistakes, and he tells a story that he wants to tell, and I feel like it might seem like he is just ignoring critics, but at the same time I see it as a positive, as he's sort of ignoring critics and getting better at the same time. Like, he's telling the stories that he wants to tell, and it's a story that doesn't necessarily resonate with everyone. They're usually stories of troubles with romance and sort of growing up and growing apart in distance, and people, relationships between interpersonal relationships with pets and animals and family, and stretches that into relationships like beyond like the boundaries of reality and time and space and everything. So I love his themes of just like vastness of time and the reality of space and so forth. And everything's always incredibly visually appealing. I think that Comics Wave makes the best looking anime out there. Granted, they always make stuff on like a movie budget, so that's one thing. I guess you can't really expect a series to look like his stuff, or their stuff rather. But I do think that he's definitely going to go down in history for a long time, if not just for Your Name. I think we're on the verge of having an even bigger film here with Weathering with You. Now, that's of course dependent on how globally appealing it might be, because Your Name is pretty globally appealing with how the story is and everything. Certainly more than Garden of Words, which I think is a slightly better film. But I'm super excited for Weathering with You. It's gotten to a point where the guy, I don't know if Shinkai can really like let me down here, unless it's just blatantly bad. Unless it's just, it would have to be like very like I have such high expectations that maybe I could be slightly let down. I don't know, but I don't see it as happening, because I feel like that this, maybe he's almost like the type of person that uses like his other films as sort of a draft. Like, I feel like he's still aiming to tell the type of story, like the stories are sort of similar, but I feel like maybe he might think that parts of it are sort of like incomplete, and they're all sort of just like drafts to what could be this awesome story of, young people, probably with some sort of romance and some sort of supernatural aspect, or even just life aspect of reality, sort of trying to pull them apart. Because when I remember first seeing 5 centimeters per second, right? And if you haven't seen that film, then this isn't going to make much sense. But like, there's that movie just tells the story of the reality of time and space and how it can tear apart interpersonal relationships. And as someone who's experienced something similar to what happens in that movie, I think a lot of people can relate to it. I think that time and space do affect us all, and some people handle it in some ways. Some people handle it better than others. But it is very much reality. And what I really love about Shinkai is he is not afraid to have an ending that isn't necessarily like sugar-coated. It isn't necessarily the blockbuster ending. Now, I know Your Name is sort of an exception to that, and that's very noticeable if you've seen other Shinkai films. Most of his other stuff will have sort of like a somber, almost melancholy, but realistic type ending, where reality is sort of set back in place and characters have learned from the experience and attempted to move on, or are still moving on from that previous experience. I think Garden of Words is an incredible example of that. And I don't know how Weathering with You is going to plan out, but if it's more in the same vein as Your Name, I'm still fine with that. I would prefer it to be more in the same vein as something like Garden of Words, at least in terms of its conclusion. But who knows? I mean, your outlook on the conclusion of a film, could be molded by the rest of it, right? You could enjoy the ending of a film far more if it led up, if it was like unexpected, like if the movie looked like it was going to go one way and then all of a sudden it went like a different way. Like, you could appreciate that, you could hate that aspect of it. You could like your endings to be sort of unpredictable. You could like your movies to end, like I had said, sort of, I'm going to use the term sugar-coated. That's sort of how Your Name ends. But it's still a good ending. Your Name is still a fantastic film. So in my excitement, I'm also curious to see how Weathering with You is going to play out, in terms of its plot line, its character development. If I would improve anything on Your Name with this, I would say hopefully we see a better balance of these two main characters. I would like to see both of their lives, as equal as we could, or at least have them be equally interesting. I don't think Your Name really did that necessarily. And I would like to see the if there is romance here, to have that like more played out than his previous films. As someone who just likes romance stuff, I might be shooting, I might be aiming high here for a Shinkai thing, but I would like the romance to sort of be on display, as it were. Whereas with his other films, it's not necessarily there in front of you, right? I don't think we ever really see characters kiss. I don't think we see a whole bunch of life afterward, like a epilogue kind of type story. If it ends in a positive manner, and if it ends in a negative manner, I would like to see that as well. Like, I'd like to see if these characters did drift apart, why, and what did they do with their lives after? Did they learn from the experience? Because it's, at the end of the day, that's something that you don't get from a lot of Western movies and shows, is romance doesn't work out, characters learn from it, they go to their separate lives. Like, I feel like you don't get that a lot. I feel like sometimes in like Western romance movies, you'll get, oh, it worked out because of X and Y, or some like miracle opportunity happened and now she's, gonna take him back or something. And Shinkai doesn't really do that, and I like that. It's as reality, it's as real as you can get when you have, in this instance, probably people like controlling the weather, or you have people in separate timelines, separate like realities and stuff like that. So, what do I expect from Weathering with You? I expect it to be visually stunning, beautiful. I think the music, I believe it's Radwimps again. They're going to do a great job. I think that the characters are going to be interesting and hopefully well developed. Definitely going to have some cool rain shots and some cool sky like background art and everything. It's gonna be visually stunning. I just wonder if the writing of the characters and the story can sort of keep up with that. And I'm very curious to see how the ending will be. Will it be sort of somber? Will it be more atypical of like your happy ending, your good ending, as it were? And I'm using good in terms of like your types of video game ending. Yeah, but what do you guys expect from Weathering with You? Are you big Makoto Shinkai fans like myself? If you have, let me know. If you do like him, let me know what your favorite Shinkai film is down below. And if you like what I'm doing here, please consider joining the Patreon. I'll have a link to that down below as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Miasma, and I'll see you next time.